What financial etiquette is stipulated in a restaurant? One of the hottest topics in financial etiquette is who should pay at a restaurant. Let's see what surveys and studies have to say about it. Greetings, everyone. Today, let's break down one of the most talked about topics of financial etiquette: how to do the right thing in a restaurant. Who should pay on a date? How do you determine payment rules to avoid uncomfortable situations? In this video, we'll turn to surveys and research to get to the bottom of these questions. 1 in 5 women, 19%, and 1 in 7 men, 14%, believe that on a first date the bill in a restaurant or cafe should be split in half. At the same time, 49% of men and 47% of women believe that it is the man who should pay on the first date. As relationship counselor John Gray, author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, points out, it's important not to take a man's bill paying for granted. While it's true that in the early stages of a relationship, some men may want to take on expenses, a woman shouldn't see them as something mandatory and should not take them for granted. If a person says, "I'm taking you out to dinner," he or she is presumably willing to cover all expenses. The phrase, "let's have dinner," has a more neutral connotation and may imply that everyone pays their own expenses. It is desirable to clarify in time who pays for going to the restaurant so that there are no awkward moments. When deciding who pays, it is important to consider a number of factors. Gender. While judgments on this are slowly changing, traditionally a man expects to have to pay the bills. Financial situation. If one partner is struggling, it's best to discuss the possibility of cost sharing or financial assistance. Who invited? This is classic etiquette where the initiator usually pays the bill. Nothing. What's important is that both partners feel comfortable and agree with the decision, even if it differs from traditional norms. What you should keep in mind to make sure that your lunch or dinner together goes smoothly. It's not who pays the bills, but mutual respect and support that is much more important. If you are willing to pay, do so only for the pleasure of your partner, not out of a sense of obligation. To avoid awkward situations, it is better to order only those dishes and drinks that you are willing to pay for yourself. If you end up paying the bill for you, you can always use the money for something else. For example, treat your partner to a hot drink during the walk. It is better not to go to the restaurant without any money at all. If you are invited on a date and you are going to order something, it is important to show respect. Try not to ask for 10 drinks or the most expensive dish at once, unless you have been made to understand that this is acceptable. It is best to pay attention to the choice of the person treating you to see how much they are willing to spend on the evening. This will help avoid awkward situations and make the meeting comfortable for both. At a business lunch, gender does not play a role in business etiquette, as both men and women are equal colleagues. Therefore, if someone says, "I invite you," it is that party who pays the bill, but it is always a good idea to clarify who is paying. Among equal colleagues, everyone usually pays for himself or herself. To avoid misunderstandings, especially when someone leaves the event early and the bill has not yet been closed, it can be agreed that one person pays the total bill and then splits the costs later. You can use the mobile app to split the bill. In modern etiquette, it is quite natural and customary for a man to pay the bill after a meal with a lady of the heart or a female relative. In all other situations, it is customary to proceed as follows. Friends, colleagues, partners of either sex agree on the method of payment in advance. Options: 50-50, each for himself. One of the participants may offer to pay the joint bill himself as a sign of respect, but he should not insist on it. Between groups of partners during a business meeting in a restaurant under parity conditions, choose from the same 3 options. If one of the parties was interested in the meeting, he initiated it. It is appropriate and logical for him to offer to pay the bill. It is also acceptable to pay it in half if the other party insists on it. Tip. Additional rewards are most often received by waiters. Tips are sometimes up to half of their earnings. Maids and porters in hotels. There are no clear guidelines on who to tip, but most often they are received by these workers. Cab drivers and couriers. With the development of mobile applications, has become easier to leave tips, including in electronic form. Bartenders often receive 15 to 20% of the amount spent on drinks. The decision whether to tip depends on many factors. The quality. of service, the type of establishment, the occasion being on vacation, at a business meeting, or on a date, the level of income, the convenience and availability of the establishment's cashless tip application. As a rule, it is customary to tip 5% to 10% of the amount on the bill. You can leave a gratuity for the waiter either on the table or in the folder on the tray in which the bill was brought. If you are dissatisfied with the service, it is perfectly normal not to leave a gratuity. But in this case, be sure to check if the tip is included in the bill. If it is, please contact the restaurant administration. How much to tip in a restaurant? Tipping is customary everywhere and big. 15% is considered almost a constitutional norm. To pay less than 10% is simply indecent. In restaurants, the size of tips is 15 to 25%. In cafes, bars, 10 to 15%, and even in fast food establishments, Americans leave $1 to $2 in tips. In cabs, tips are almost obligatory, at least 15%. Can I not tip? You should remember that tipping money is voluntary, and you are not obliged to leave it if you are not satisfied with the service, whereas tipping an insult. In China and Japan, leaving a tip in the form of money after a meal is not only not customary, but can be perceived as an insult. As it turns out, this is due to local customs and the perception of tipping as a hint of underpayment or poor service. Why don't guests tip? A visitor tips staff only at their discretion. The guest is not obliged to leave them, especially if the staff served poorly. Therefore, if the waiter did not come for a long time or mixed up the order, you cannot give him a tip. How much tip should I leave in a beauty salon? The amount of tip is individual. Usually it is from 10% to 20% of the amount in the check. But sometimes, if the result is very pleasant, the client can leave even 30%. When several masters work with a client, it is more common to leave one amount, which is then divided equally. Tipping is optional if the service charge is automatically included in the bill. In Brazil, this is considered a general rule, but the customer has the right to refuse to pay the service charge. Tips and gifts often refer to bribes. For example, in Mexico, a traffic police officer may ask a traffic offender to buy him a refreshing drink, while in Nigeria he may ask for a little something for the weekend. In Western countries, tips are left for almost all service personnel. Government officials, it is against the law to tip government officials and is considered a bribe. However, it is not forbidden to give them anything except money, up to a maximum of $20. South Africa. In South Africa, one is tipped for car security. This is an unofficial service that is spreading very quickly. The person who is called in to guard the car also helps to find a parking space. The service is in demand, as according to statistics, 140 cars are stolen every day in South Africa. The tip for this service is a little less than $1. So, understanding financial etiquette in a restaurant and other public places helps not only to avoid awkward situations, but also to build relationships based on mutual respect and agreement. Remember, the key to successful communication is openness and attention to the other person. Share your views on financial etiquette in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell not to miss new videos. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.